Random clickbait.
What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
Jack!
No, Charlie! That's why I'm a misfit toy. My name is all wrong.
What am I? I ain't no physicist, but I knows what matters. What am I?
No child wants to play with a Charlie in the box, so I had to come here.
Written and directed by John Landis Davis.
A name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
Burglar is very clever and very sneaky.
The Hamburglar!
And he loves taking McDonald's hamburgers. So
The labels discussed and applied in label theory are not names, but rather should be thought of as formal and informal diagnosis of a syndrome of deviance by other social actors. This medical term is formed by combining the Greek word, to run, dramion, with the prefix together, son, and describes a collection of symptoms that consistently appear or run together.
Human hierarchies of dominance have historically used labels to validate their origins and justify their continued existence. The Greeks divided the social world into Greeks and barbarians, all non-Greeks, or as Aristotle defined and labeled them, masters and slaves.
American scholar of race, Ibram X. Kendi traces the origin of racist ideology to the language of labels used by Aristotle to divide the social world of humans' relations into this heavily privileged binary of masters and slaves in his 2017 text, Stamped from the Beginning.
What is that? It's food stamps! Get so much money from the government, I just throw it away!
Most people were as sickened as I was by the sight of these spongers descending like locusts, demanding benefits with menaces. We are not in the business of subsidizing scoundrels.
Mead, 1934, cites the importance of language as a vehicle of social action with its ability to construct, interpret, and transmit meaning.
Jane, you ignorant slut. That sort of fashionable promiscuity means nothing to someone like you, Jane, who hops from bed to bed with the frequency of a cheap ham radio. A screeching, squealing, rapacious swamp sow.
Words and the labels crafted from them communicate meaning by their ability to arouse in others reactions based on shared sentiments regarding the type of person, place, or object discussed.
But she is a whore!
Tenenbaum, 1938, saw the process of labeling as a shift from defining various acts as good or bad to the labeling of individuals with those highly loaded terms.
Braithwaite, 1989, examined the formal and informal societal reactions to perceived misconduct by its members in his classic work, Crime, Shame, and Reintegration. In this text, Braithwaite theorized the mechanism of social control utilized in labeling is shame.
I'll cut off my hand before I reach for you again. Whore! Be gone!
For Braithwaite, shame has two presentations, reintegrative and disintegrative. Each type has the ability to tremendously impact the labeled individual's social standing and rate at which they will reoffend.
So on, your time is up and your parole's begun. You know what that means.
Yes, means I'm free.
No. Follow to the letter your itinerary. This badge of shame, you'll show it till you die. It warns you're a dangerous man.
I stole a loaf of bread.
Reintegrative shame targets the behavior, which it marks and labels as undesirable. This type of shame is used as a corrective to help mold the person into a valued member of the group. In contrast, disintegrative shame shames both the person and behavior, and is utilized as a means of social exclusion.
Goffman, 1963, identified three types of stigmatizing conditions. 1. Differences based on race, sex, religion, or nation. 2. Physical deformities. And 3. Moral blemishes on one's individual character.
Becker, 1963, argued to be labeled a criminal one need only commit one criminal act. the criminal label carrying with it a whole set of associated traits and folk beliefs about criminals that cause the person to be thought generally as a criminal rather than someone who has committed a single offense.
Stigmatic disintegrative shame has the potential to stigmatize the shamed to become tagged or branded by peers, parents, and police as a criminal, pervert, or deviant. McGrath, 2014. Stigmatization is described by Goffman, 1963, as moral blemishes of an individual's character that communicates to others their unredeemable exile from the social body of morally upright people.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say that's the bad guy.
The contemporary use of background checks, termed the electronic scarlet letter by Murphy and colleagues, 2011, is a highly effective way to label people as criminals and carries with an assortment of personal and social consequences. For those electronically branded with the label of criminal, background checks are chronic and debilitating badges of shame that plague those who have come into contact with the criminal justice system.
Goffman's 1963 spoiled identity is the end result of the labeling process. A spoiled identity is accompanied and electronically verified by negative credentials, such as a background check which reveals the individual's past misconduct and helps to reinforce their master status of a convicted felon.
Becker, 1963, cited in Murphy and colleagues, 2011, to argue background checks quote tell others not only did this person do something wrong, there is likely something wrong with this person, end quote.
The targets and purpose of moral judgments of behaviors can take two forms. 1, the act is evidence of the individual's poor moral character, or 2, the act is condemned but is not seen as indicative of the person's values or overall moral character. Ullman, Pissarro, and Diemeier, 2015.
Though it's 1995, defined role identity as a social position a person holds in a larger social structure that they consider a description of themselves. The individual's role identity is enacted with at least one other person. One's role identity and the description this label entails becomes part of their self-conception.
Role identities are established through recurrent interactions between role partners and provides each self-meaning found in the role's recognized expectations.
Role partner relationships can take three forms. The first is complementary role partnerships, like those found in teacher-pupil partnerships. The second are competing role partnerships, such as labor representatives and business executives. The third and final type are counter-role partnership, like those seen between a detective and a career criminal. Hogg et al., 1995. Weinstein et al., 1996.
McCall and Simmons, 1966, conceived of the role identity each of us enacted as the character and role that individual devises for himself as an occupant of a particular social position, including his imaginative view of himself being and acting as an occupant of that position.
Put simply, the labeled person begins to see themselves as an addict, criminal, pervert, and will continue to act out the role or label placed upon them.
And sadly will continue to behave as a criminal, because, after all, that's what criminals do.